According to the National Center for Transgender Equality and the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, 28% of those that participated in this survey have experienced harassment and 2% physical violence while with their medical providers. When it comes to medical care and dealing with providers, 28% have postponed medical care, while 48% have the inability to afford such care needed for transitioning or for maintaining their transgender sexual orientation. A staggering 19% of respondents who are either transgender or are gender nonconforming or even refused care from their medical providers. What I find even more absurd and discriminating to this group of people is the lack of provider knowledge. Within the same study, it claims that 50% had to in fact teach their medical providers about transgender care. If and when providers did have pre-existing knowledge about transgender care and patient status as transgender or gender nonconforming, the likelihood for discrimination increased. 19% on average are refused care, and 28% were verbally harassed by medical providers or while in their medical office. As a result, over 25% have admitted to misusing drugs and alcohol to specifically cope with such discrimination. And mind you, this is all concerning medical care. Doctors who are paid to provide care and who have taken an oath are doing the majority of discriminating. 41% of the respondents in this study by the National Center for Transgender Equality and the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force have reported attempting suicide compared to the national average of 1.6 with the general population. In another article in the UCLA Women's Law Journal titled Transgender Employment Discrimination, written by Katie Koch and Richard Bales, explains a tale of discrimination in which Steve Stanton, city manager of Largo, Florida, who had held this title for 14 years, was ultimately fired 1 week after announcing that he was transsexual and planned on having sexual reassignment surgery. Those that were in favor of Stanton's dismissal described Stanton as lacking integrity. Again, according to the Webster definition of discrimination, they made this decision based on bias, not on individual merit. According to this article and Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, that was amended in 1991, it is unlawful to fail or refuse hire or to discharge any individual based on sex. And here's where it gets tricky. Because each state has the right to define sex as being what they were assigned to at birth, so technically it isn't necessarily labeled as discrimination. However, within this article, they do say that by including transgender with the definition of sex, the entire transgender community would be protected. In the third article I read and researched, titled A Gender Not Listed Here, Gender Queers, Gender Rebels, and Otherwise in the National Transgender Discrimination Survey from the Williams Institute, it discussed further comparisons when dealing with those who are genderqueer or non-confirming compared to those who have claimed transgender. A staggering 32% suffer physical assaults versus the normal 25% who are already labeled as transgender. This means that those who are defined as questioning suffer more frequently than those who identify as transgender. I'm sure that this is a interesting topic for some people. It certainly was for me. When reading about it, there was a lot of vocabulary that I was unaware of, as vocabulary like genderqueer, gender rebel, nonconforming, male to female, female to male. The nonconforming part is what I find most interesting. Those who don't want to make a selection. They're not gay, they're not lesbian, they're not man, they're not woman. They're often referred to as pansexual or asexual, are discriminated against higher than those who are men who want to be women or women who want to be men. Again, personal preference has a lot to do with this. In our current climate in 2020, it's not uncommon, it's not surprising that this is such a high discriminated against group of people. An astonishing 16% of genderqueers survived sexual assault, according to the article titled A Gender Not Listed Here. While in school, mind you, in grades K through 12, 16% survived sexual assault while in school. 31% face police brutality, and a staggering 76% are unemployed as a result of discrimination based on their sexual orientation or lack thereof. In conclusion, discrimination is everywhere and likely always will be. But for transgender and those who are genderqueer or nonconforming, it is shockingly higher, even higher than those who are either gay or lesbian. Transgenders are discriminated against while in employment. They are discriminated against when it comes to physical and sexual assault. And what I find most appalling is the discrimination that transgenders suffer at the hands of medical providers. Discrimination is something that has been ingrained in our nation and our nation's history. A fish rots from the head down. It will take the highest leadership and lawmakers to change the discrimination that people suffer every day in America in 2020. Thank you.